Hey everybody, it's Jason here, aka Shady Reaper, and this is another episode of Overclocking and Modding. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 9800 GTX Plus from EVGA. We're going to mod this thing today. We're going to do a Vcore mod on it. I was able to get 837 megahertz out of this thing stock with the stock voltage of 1.15 volts. Today we're going to mod the voltage controller to go ahead and give it some more voltage because we're going to do this thing with ice water next. So we're going to go ahead and volt mod this thing. Normally you would also do the memory volt mod, but since this video card hit 1400 megahertz with the stock voltage, we're just going to go ahead and leave it alone because that's actually really good. Most of these cards only get like 1275, 1300, 1350. So 1400 right off the rip is pretty good. So let's go ahead and dive in this thing and let's get to modding it. Alright, before we break this card down, let's go over a few of the tools you're going to need. Okay, first thing you're going to need is Phillips screwdrivers and flathead screwdrivers. I like to keep a bunch of them around just in case. You're going to need your digital multimeter, some wire strippers, soldering iron, solder, tip cleaner, some wire cutters, and what I like to do is you're also going to need your variable resistors. I like to buy a multi-pack with a bunch of them in it, so you got a bunch of different sizes and variable resistances. Also, I like to cut off an old Molex plug off an old power supply, the female end, to use to solder to make my voltage read points. You can also go on eBay and buy 3-wire 0.01 to 30 volt LED readouts and actually solder them on there, and you won't have to have a digital multimeter to read the read point. It'll come out on a display. I also like to use either the little magnifying stand or my big quantum precision magnifying lens. Also, I like to cut off fan headers, old fan headers, 2-wire fan headers, like this, like these. This way you can plug your VR right into this, into the end of this, and it fits right in there. And then when you're done with the mod or the video card, you need a VR, you could just pull this VR out instead of soldering everything to the PCB in your spots. You could just solder this wire to it. All you're doing is wasting a little bit of wire, and you can reuse your VR again. Some people do that, some people don't. I also have another plug here that I use to adjust the VRs to their maximum resistance before powering up. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, oh, and don't forget, very valuable thing right here, the solder sucker. You drop a piece of solder in between here somewhere, you just heat it up, suck it right up. This way you ain't got to worry about knocking your resistors off and crazy crap like that. I've already messed up video cards doing that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and tear this video card apart. What I like to do is I like to start on the outside edge here and take all of these screws out first. Also, another good thing to have is a tray to put all your screws in, which I have right here. Some people use magnetic trays. I just use an old butter dish, but I like to start out here on the edge, grab this one out, then grab these two out, start here, You just slowly take all these screws out from the outside in around to the core. And then take this one apart. These four are what hold the heatsink to your core. I like to take these loose, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and then a little bit here. Well, maybe a lot bit there. And then go ahead and take them the rest of the way out. All right. Now, you go give it a little wiggle, and it does a wiggle. Make sure you check this top side. See, as you can see, we got 2 screws here. Take this screw. Take this screw here. Take both these screws, set them in there. And then go ahead, make sure you got all your screws out. They're everywhere out. Just wiggle it back and forth a little bit, but be real easy. As you see it pop right apart. Here we go. And this is the PCB for the 9800 GTX Plus. As you can see, the guy at EVGA that day put a shit ton of thermal paste on this thing. He wins the award for too much thermal paste, maybe? So, look at all that dust. Gosh. It's what happens when you buy cards off of eBay. But this is the best way to start if you really want to know. You know, you're not out buying $500, $600 graphics cards. You're buying a $20, $30 graphics card, and you know, that's what you get. You get a dusty piece of crap when you buy them off of eBay, or your friend sends them to you used. Which this was sent to me by a friend, so I could do this video for you guys. So, now that we have that broken down, man, that thermal paste is really nasty there. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead, put this off to the side here. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the back of this thing. Alright, let me get you guys zoomed in here. Okay, this is our voltage controller here. It's a Premium voltage controller. It comes on an 8800 GTS's, 8800 GTS 320 meg, 640 meg. Comes on 9800 GTs, 9800 GTX pluses. Comes on a lot of NVIDIA. As you can see, this is a, oh, where the heck did it go? This is actually an NVIDIA reference PCB, as you can see right there, with the NVIDIA reference PCB. So, like I said, this Premium fucking controller comes on a lot of the reference PCBs. So, alright, first thing you want to do to get to this mod is get out your voltage meter. Okay. Turn on your voltage meter. I like to start at 200 ohms. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get the ohm reading of the feedback pin. I've looked all over the internet to try and find a picture of this voltage controller for you guys, but nowhere can I find the actual readout pins for this thing. So the first thing you do is you find your feedback pin, which I know is the very middle, the 6th pin right here in the center of this. So what I want to do is I'm going to get out my voltage, or my ohm reader. Let's widen this up for you guys. And get the light on for you here. See if I can get this nice and showing here so you guys can see it. Let me see. Just a little bit. Oh, and it got worse. There we go. Okay. Now I know from past experiences doing this that this 6th pin, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right here in the middle is the pin that I need to read my ohm reading from. So what you want to do is you want to take your black probe, your ground probe, put it on one of the ground spots of, you know, the PCB, anywhere where there's ground, and then you want to check this 6th pin right here in the middle. See what ohm it says. I'm getting a 14.4 ohm reading here. Okay, so that tells me that the feedback pin is 14.4 ohms. Okay, so what do I need to do next? So I'm not trying to solder my wire to that teeny little pin right there. I need to turn around and I need to trace my PCB down. I need to trace this pin down to somewhere around here where it mods to. Okay, because this voltage comes out of here and comes down around here to this pin right here, which I know is because nope, that one says 21.1. Test this one. It's not that one. You go around here until you find your 14.4 again. Actually, now that I look at it again and I get a good reading on it, it is actually 21.1. So this spot is 21.1. This spot is not. This spot is 21.1. And this spot is 21.1. So I know that those 3 spots, 1, 2, 3, are spots that I can solder to my positive side of my VR to one of these 3 locations. This will give me my location point for my voltage mod. So to figure out what size VR you got, we know that's 21.1. So we bust out our trusty calculator and times 21.1 times 1, or 20. 21.1 times 20. That gives us 420 ohms resistance. So the next closest VR that we have to 420 is 500 ohms. So what we do here, what I like to do, is I like to get out my 500 ohm VR. Let me see here. 1 second. All right, we find our VR, which I know, oh, you guys can't see it. I know that the one labeled 501 is the 500 ohm resistors, which is what I need. 500 ohm. See if I can get it to zoom in for you guys. It's being stupid. Okay. So. Okay. What I like to do is, since you only need the middle leg and an outer leg, the outer leg, which one you cut off or which one you use depends on which way you turn the VR here, your adjustable VR, which way you turn the VR to lower the resistance, which gives you more voltage. What I like to do is I like to use the pin closest to the screw, which is this bottom pin down here. So what I like to do is I take my cutters, and just so this thing is never in the way, I just cut it off. So now we got our two legs. And as you can see, now that we got our two legs, I can take my two legs and slide it right in the VR right in, and now it's my wire. This wire has two little things on the end, so I could take and, let me widen this up, so I can take and put it on my voltage meter here, set it on the 2000 ohm setting, and this is what I like to do. You make sure that the middle leg is always ground on your VR. The middle leg is always ground. Remember that. So as you can see, my black wire is ground here. I'll get to the ground side of the voltage meter and the positive to the positive side. And as you can see, we have a base reading on the VR of 245, 246 ohms. Now what I like to do is I like to turn this thing all the way up to 500. So to do that, you turn it clockwise. Keep on going. Keep on going. Remember though, when you get close to 499, 480, 490, 495, I would slow down and stop, because if you turn it too far, you can damage the VR. So, here we go. We're almost there. 425, 430, 440, 450, 460, 470, 480, 485. I'll stop at about 495, 496 there. And as you can see, like I said, you turn it counterclockwise. Turn your VR counterclockwise, and it goes down, giving it more voltage. You turn it clockwise, and it turns it up, and it gives it less voltage. Okay, now that we know our VR is set, go ahead and pull your VR out. Don't need your voltage meter for now. Okay, now, next thing we need to do is get this wire soldered on here. This is the fun part. So everybody's like, oh, this is so hard. I like to use fine tip soldering iron. Make sure you keep your tip clean. That is very, very important while doing this. Keeping your tip clean and all of that. If you don't keep your tip clean, you're going to be dropping solder everywhere and getting solder all over the place, and you just don't want that. It's not what you want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug this soldering iron on in and get it all heated up, and we'll get to modding this thing. I'll be right back. Alright, here we go. Now that I got this thing lined up a little bit better here so you guys can see. Alright, I'm going to take my wire here, my fan header wire that I used to plug the VRs into. I'm going to untwist it here a little bit and get it untangled. I only need about, a few inches of wire here. Go ahead and cut it off. We got our VR wire ready here for our variable resistor. Okay. Now, one thing I forgot to mention that you will also need is the hot glue gun. You're going to need this to glue your freaking VR wire to your PCB. So we're going to go ahead and heat this thing up, get it heated up and ready. All right, now that that's heating up, I like to glue my wire up here out of the way of everything for my VR. You don't want to glue it on stuff that's going to get hot or get near stuff that's going to get hot or anything like that, because what happens when the hot glue gets hot, it melts and your freaking VR comes flying off while you're doing testing. It's not all that fun. Trust me, I put a VR in the wrong spot one time with hot glue and my voltage read point one time with hot glue, and yeah, no, did not go very well at all. It kept falling off. I plugged my freaking voltage meter into it. As you can see, it kept falling off. Glue's still stuck to it there. It's ridiculous. So you don't want to deal with that. So what I like to do is I'm going to put my up here, away from all of that stuff. Make sure you got enough wire to go down to your spot where you're going to be modding, which I do. And see if our hot glue gun is hot yet, which it is not. Should be hot here in a second. Get the card back up here so you guys can see it. And some people glue these things on with super glue. I'm not all into that. Super glue on. I don't want to super glue these things on. Do that, it's just a waste. Because then they don't really want to come back off. At least this way with a hot glue, they'll come back off. So, now that we have that there, now it's time for the funs. It's time for the fun stuff. Oh, our light went out. I plugged the wrong thing. No, we gotta have a light. Okay. Now that we have a light, Let me get this thing adjusted again here. So you guys can see. Okay. Now, okay, here's our controller. And we know that this dot, and this resistor right here are the three that we can solder to our VR. So, what you do, make sure you got enough wire over here. Clip off the extra. Clip off the extra. Then take your wire cutters, wire strippers, strip you off a little piece. All right. Now you see we have our little bit of wire stripped off. You can actually kind of cut that down some. We don't need all that much. Because you don't want this wire touching other things once you solder it on there. Me, I'm going to solder to this little ball here. Right there, that little solder spot. So, get out my soldering iron. Make sure the tip is nice and clean. I forgot to mention, this is a 60-watt soldering iron that has adjustable, that's adjustable. As you can see, it's adjustable temperature. I keep it turned all the way down. So, get us adjusted here again so everybody can see what we're doing here. There you go. There we go. It's a little better. All right. Because we know that that's the trying to get it to focus in for you guys so you can see. Because you know that that little spot right there is where I'm going for. Right there. So, take and get me a little bit of solder on my soldering iron. Go ahead, and I like to put a little bit on the wire there. Clean off your tip again. Try to get this a little better focused for you guys. Clean off the tip. A little bit of solder. Take our wire. You know we want to get it right there. Oh man, I'm over here burning the wire. It must not be very clean. Yep, wire didn't stick. Okay, it doesn't stick like that. No wires start to act goofy on the end. I like to twist it up a little bit, get it a little nicer there on the end. Go ahead and clean my tip off again. Yes, this is not something you just stick on there and it just, no, it takes a couple of attempts sometimes. Put some more solder on this. This dang tip. It's pushing these wires apart here. I'm gonna fix that right freaking now. As you can see, solder the wires together. And as you can see there, it's on there nice and tight now. See? Give it a little wiggle. Make sure it's not going to come off of there. And then you're done there. A nice shot of it for you guys. And see. There you go. A little better. Okay. Now, next thing you need to do, solder our ground wire. Ground wire is really easy to do. I just used one of the ground holes that were, every one of these holes are grounds. these solder spots around them. I like to take my wire loose there. Better wire strippers. Them ones are getting old. And then I like to just solder it right to the, like I said, right there. So, take your soldering iron. I like to heat up this solder a little bit. Drop some new stuff on it. Take your wire. Should clean your freaking tip off. There you go. Now you have your modded 9800 GTX Plus. Now what I like to do is I like to take out my little magnifier here and just look. Make sure your wire there isn't touching anything else. All it's touching is the solder dot that you wanted it on. As you can see, all it's touching is the solder dot that I wanted it on. Now, next thing I like to do is glue that wire in place a little bit so it doesn't move around. So we'll go ahead and solder these glue these wires down, and we'll come back. Alright, now that we got all this glued up and on there nice, last thing to do is our Vcore readout. I like to use the red and the black here. Go ahead and trim these wires up because you look pretty nappy. Go ahead and strip these wires down again. Strip that one. And strip that one. Alright, now we got our Molex plug ready here. Now, I know that the voltage Vcore read point is right off of this little resistor right here. This very top one here. Right here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder the positive side of my read point, the red wire, right to that resistor. First thing I'm going to do, put some solder on the wire. This is how I like to put my solder on my wire. I like to take my wire and set it up beside the solder. like that. And then just rub it on. You just take it once it's on there, smooth it out real nice all the way around there. Make sure you don't flip solder on your PCB. Which I don't believe I do. All right. Do the same thing for your ground wire. I'm going to keep it away from the video card this time so I'm not dropping solder on it. As you see, both wires are got nice little black solder on them. All right. Clean off your tip. Get your glue gun. Put your little glue right there. Stick your reed point on there. All right. Now you take your little red wire. And get you some solder on there. Your soldering iron. Obviously, it looks like my soldering iron is too hot. So, what I like to do when the soldering iron gets a little too hot like that is I like to turn it off. What it's doing is it's getting too hot and it's burning the solder, so the solder doesn't stick. Gets too hot, starts acting goofy. As you can see, this wire is not doing what I want it to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this wire out some. Try to get it to work here a little better. More solder. Actually, I'm sick of dealing with this napped up end. I'm just cutting it off. Restrip my wire. You coat the tip. Does not want to stick. This thing is being stupid and it don't want to stick. Oh my goodness. There we go. All right. And for the ground, we're just going to do the same thing we did earlier. Put some solder on the board. And take our ground and solder it down. And there you go. As you can see, fully modded and ready to go. Now normally I leave that yellow wire on there for you know, your memory core voltage, but since we're not doing the memory core on this one, or memory voltage on this one, we're gonna just go ahead and leave it alone. Just leave it unglued and unsoldered to anything, and there you go. As you can see, there's your Vcore read point, and there's your Vcore mod. Now the last thing to do is test it. We'll be back with the testing. Alright, now that we're back, I went ahead and I cleaned up the core of the GPU and cleaned off the heatsink. We're going to go ahead and test this thing on air. Make sure it comes on first before I go strapping a water block and all that crazy goodness on it. So we're going to get our MX2 from Arctic. Really good stuff. And I'm just going to put a little dot right here on the middle of the GPU. And you got to be very, very careful when you do this. Plug your fan back in. Here. Now you take your GPU. Real easy with it. Fan shroud. Get your wire to slide back up in there. Get lined up. Get it all pushed down in there real nice. What I like to do first, after you get that on there, make sure you put your lid back on your thermal paste. Make sure all your little screw holes are lined up real nice. You take your 4 for your GPU core first. 3, 4 for the core. Right here. What I like to do first, so I like to put these ones in first. Just tighten them up just a little bit. Not much. Just a little bit on each corner. A little bit on each. Oh, a little bit on each corner. I got it on there. What I like to do next is I like to get the 2 front screws that were holding the front of it in. Put those barely in. Right. Now go ahead, tighten your 4 core bolts a little bit. 2, 3, 4. All right. I'll go ahead and put one in this corner. Lightly put it in there. And I like to work my way out from the middle. I don't really like putting screws where I put the solder at. Sometimes it'll knock your solder loose if you're not careful. So. We don't want none of our grounds shorting out. Tighten these top screws up. And there you are. It's all ready to go. Now next thing we're going to do is we're going to throw it in my test system and we're going to boot it up and see if it boots to the BIOS screen and see what it comes up and see what happens. We'll be right back. Alright, now that I got Little Ugly out, as you can tell the reason why I call it Little Ugly, because it's just an ugly little PC system that I use to put all video cards in to check and make sure that they're not going to explode before I put them in my expensive X99 system. So here we go. Let's turn the power on and see if Little Ugly comes on. Well, we got power so far. And here we go. We got 1.18 volts. Stock is 1.15. So we know our Vcore mod is working. And we know our video card is working because we have a screen. So the mod is successful. And if you want to check and see if the mod is really successful and that it actually works, you could always take a screwdriver, change your VR, and see if it actually changes the resistance, which we'll do in the next video with the testing. Actually no, here, I'll just go ahead and show you right now that if you turn your VR clockwise or counterclockwise, as you can see, the voltage just moved, 1.9, 0.19. And if you keep turning, it'll just keep going up and up, up. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this back down. And we're going to go ahead and shut it off, and we'll get the water block on it the next time in the next video, and we'll get it tested up with some ice water on it. Okay, as you can see, doing a voltage mod for a video card isn't very hard. Just a little time consuming. It takes a little bit of brains to do it. The next video, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to strap the water block on this thing. Maybe I'll just, matter of fact, I'll go ahead and do some air testing first, just to see how much more I could get out of it on air. I got 837 on it at the stock voltage. Let's see what I could get on air. Hopefully if it doesn't get too hot, I get a little bit better, maybe 900 megahertz out of it. Who knows? We'll just have to see. So, till the next time everybody, it's Overclocking Modding. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like this video, give it a thumbs down. And don't forget to subscribe down at the bottom and the little red button. Thanks again everybody. See you next time.